Hello everyone and welcome to my guide on how to use the CTLD system on the Contention DCS server. This is an incredibly useful and involved system. CTLD stands for Complete Troop and Logistics Deployment, and it essentially lets you pop down ground units wherever you like within some restrictions. This lets you really shape the battlefield, you can reinforce sites, you can set up defences, and you can go on the attack and take enemy bases with this. So let's jump in and see how it all works. So first of all, this is limited to only a few airframes. Probably most usefully is your set of helicopters. The helicopters that are allowed to do CTLD are the Hind, the Hip, the Hui, the Kiowa, the Gazelle, and then we do have some planes. All of the World War II warbirds can do CTLD. The C-101, L-39 and MB-339 trainers can also all do it, but they do come with the downside that it is a little harder for them to land when they're not landing directly at an airfield. Certainly is possible, particularly for the warbirds, to land on soft soil, but is going to put you to the test with your skills, so definitely the helicopters are probably the easiest things to start off with. Now, while I'm talking about restrictions, I also want to go over the server rules with using this system, just so no one makes any mistakes. First up then is you are restricted on where you can deploy units. Some of these restrictions are enforced by the server, so you cannot deploy units within 2.6 nautical miles of the nearest CTLD pickup zone, and these are marked by the outer ring on all FARPs and airfields. The game will enforce those, so you don't really have to worry about that, but that's just where you need to land. What is a little more important is that in the server rules it clearly states that all of the vehicles must be placed out in the open. You must not place them in tree lines, hedgerows, things like that. This is really a quality of life feature so that air units do have a hope of spotting these with targeting pods and the like. It can be incredibly hard with doing that in a tree line, so just make sure you dump these in little open fields. There are plenty of those, just stay away from the trees, stay away from the buildings, and you're fine. Another little restriction that I'm going to point out here, but we'll be going over more in the Combined Arms guide, which will be coming up, and that is that you are free to drive around any of the units that you personally have dropped using CTLD. Combined Arms owners can do this from the JTAC slot, and if you've got permission to use the Tactical Commander slot, you get a few more options there as well. But do be careful here if you are using the system. Again, try and keep the units away from tree lines other than passing through them, and very importantly, do not move someone else's units without their express permission. Now, normally this is absolutely fine. I've never come across a case where a JTAC is refused permission to use someone's unit, but just be polite. Ask them just in case they were there for a particular reason and they want to come back to them. Now, as for what kind of things you can drop here, I'm going to break this really into 3 sections. Each are going to get their own guide because they work subtly different ways. Most notably, you can put down SAM sites, tanks, vehicles of other kinds, including IFVs. Also, you can put down things like early warning radar systems, logistics, ammo trucks. There is a huge amount that you can put down here. Separately to that is also the, quote, troops that you can drop. For various reasons, these have been replaced. Instead of dropping troops, you do drop a technical with a machine gun in the back. Mostly I believe this is for visibility purposes, so that the aircraft have a hope in hell of spotting things, whereas they really can't spot a man-pad hidden in a tree line. You can also use a very similar system to repair and reinforce factories. I will be covering that in its own video because it is a little bit different and I want to keep this video length down as much as possible. So first off, I'm going to cover the most used feature here, and this is the various vehicle crates that you can put down. For these, the first thing you're going to need to do is load up your chosen airframe with the vehicle crate to take out with you. To do this, open up your comms menu, go to F10 Other, then hit F5 CTLD, and then you want to go F3 Vehicle Crates. You'll then be presented with a list of different crate types that you can bring, different vehicle types. Select one of these, and then you'll be presented with a list of the actual crates that you can load aboard. And again, just pick one of these, and what will happen is that crate will be spawned directly in front of you. Now, just to begin with, we're going to be doing a simple shulker crate here, and this just needs a single crate delivered. I'll be coming on to multiple crate deliveries just in a little bit. Now, to actually put this crate on your aircraft, what you need to do is go back to your comms menu, go to F10 Other, F5 CTLD, then F4 CTLD Commands, and F1 Load Nearby Crate. You should get then a message popping up in the top right corner confirming that you have loaded this crate on and telling you how much it weighs. This will be added to your aircraft weight. And do note that you can only have one of these vehicle crates loaded at a time, and that applies for all of the vehicles that can do this. Now, you can load these crates whenever you are near a CTLD site, and these are located at captured airfields and FARPs, and you know that you're in these because on the map these are shown by the small shaded circle around each airfield and FARP. As long as you're within that circle, you can do these options and pick up crates. Now that you've loaded the crate, you do need to fly away to deploy it. The crates cannot be dropped anywhere in the outer circles of any captured airfield, whether that's friendly or hostile. The outer circle is what you need to move away from. Once you are outside of that circle, though, you can drop these anywhere. That includes in the middle of nowhere, it includes within uncaptured zones. But remember the restrictions we said before, don't put these in tree lines, don't hide them in buildings, and so on. Either way, to drop these, you're going to need to land, then reopen your comms menu, go to F10 Other, F5 CTLD, F4 CTLD Commands, and then hit F3 Drop Crates. You should then see the same crate you picked up appear in front of you, and you should get a message in the top right confirming this. Now, for simple vehicles such as shulkers, you only need one crate, so now you can unpack it. And to do that, once again, go back into your comms menu, F10, F5 to CTLD, F4 CTLD Commands, and then hit F2 Unpack Nearby Crates. This will attempt to unpack the nearest crate to your aircraft, which is likely the one that you've just dropped. You should then see the crate disappear and it should be replaced with the vehicle. If there are any issues, you will get a message in the top right telling you what the issue was. If you've successfully deployed this, you should get a confirmation message in the top right, including the award of a credit point for deploying a vehicle. Now, one thing to watch here with the vehicle crates is all crates do have a cost associated with them. You don't pay the cost when you spawn them, but you pay the cost when you actually unpack the crate, or at least attempt to. This is charged against your team's resources cap. The costs for each crate are listed when you're selecting the crates, and when you load a crate, it will tell you your team's current number of resource points. I'll be doing a separate video on how to get resource points and all the various things you can spend them on, but this is what that's going to be charged against. Your team should be steadily accruing points, so you can just wait a while if your team is out of them, but do keep an eye on this. Now, different weapon systems do have different values, so your medium range or long range SAM sights cost 25,000 points. Repairing one of these costs 12,500 points. Your standard ground vehicles do vary between 5,000 and 12,000 points. Putting down various AAA, IR SAMs or other short-range SAM systems vary between 10 and 15,000 points, and all other vehicles and drops cost 5,000. This is paid when you try to unpack. If your team does not have enough resources to unpack, you will get a message in the top right. then nothing will happen to the crate. You will just need to wait around until you've got enough resources, and then you'll be able to unpack it. So that is the basics, but then there are some complications. Some spawns do require multiple crates, and these kind of fall into two categories. One type is just a single unit that is deemed beyond a certain level of power, and so it needs multiple identical crates put together in order to spawn. This includes various heavy ground vehicles, your more advanced SAM systems that are still based on a single vehicle, and things like tanks. For example, here I want to set up an SA-15 Tor system. We can see that after it we've got two numbers in parentheses. The first is the number of those crates that you need to deploy. In this case, to deploy an SA-15, I need to put 4 crates down in the same area. The second number is the price that I previously mentioned. In this case, this is 15,000. Do note this is per unit, not per crate. So although this Tor site requires 4 crates to put down, setting it up does still just cost a single 15,000 once-off payment from your team supply. Otherwise, spawning, loading, carrying, and dropping the crate is exactly the same. You just need to do this with multiple crates, all within the same area. Time of recording, they need to be within 300 meters of each other, I believe. If you do put them too far away, you will be reminded of the current minimum distance in the top corner, and that does apply to all crates, have to be essentially within a circle of that distance from one another. So just put all of these right next to each other and you won't have a problem. Once they are all down in the same area, you can then go to unpack just as before, and the nearest crate will be replaced with the active system. All the crates will then despawn. Now, similar to this but a little more complicated is that some of the SAM sites involve multiple different vehicles that get put down. Each comes in their own crate and all need to be placed before you can unpack any of the crates. So for example here I've got an SA-3 system. This needs the P-19 search radar, its SA-3's tracking radar, and the SA-3 launcher. You need absolutely everything that is listed with your launcher type all placed down together. The only thing you don't need to drop is the repair. The repair kit is for repairing a partially damaged site afterwards. So to deploy it, you just need everything else on that list except for the repair system. So in this case, to deploy an SA-3, I would need to drop 3 crates. To deploy an SA-2, I would need 4 crates because it also requires the Amazonka. Now once again, you need to deploy these all in the same area as one another, within 300 meters of each other. Now one thing that is a little bit different is that your different crates do now select the spawn locations of those vehicles. So where you put the search radar, that is where the search radar is going to end up. So don't just dump all these down randomly. You want to especially make sure your tracking radar has really good views and that your launchers aren't too close to anything else, so make sure the same site doesn't shoot itself essentially. Otherwise, once all crates are down, you can unpack at any one of the crates and the entire site will be unpacked. One thing just to note here is that some SAM sites share a similar vehicle between them. So in this case, the SA-3 and the SA-2 both use the P-19 search radar, and the system essentially doesn't know which one of these you want to set up. And so if you try and unpack from one of these common vehicles, so in this case trying to unpack from the P-19 search radar, it will just guess at which one, and in this case it will guess the SA-2 is what you're trying to set up. So even though you've got all of the other vehicles for the SA-3, it will throw an error. This isn't a big issue. All you need to do is move so one of the other crates are the nearest one to you and unpack that instead, and that will then auto-detect that the P-19 is going for an SA-3, not an SA-2, and it has no issues. You can avoid this problem entirely by putting down any common crates first and making sure the last crate you're deploying is something unique for the type of SAM site you are putting down. Typically that is going to be the launcher. Once you do unpack, all the crates disappear and they are replaced with their own units. In the case of these SAM sites, very often you will get multiple launchers out of one crate, and so you can deploy a sizable SAM site all in one go. But once again, you do need multiple trips here. Now you can absolutely do this solo, you can take off and just make multiple trips. You're just going to have to return to the inner circle of one of your captured airfields each time and then bring the new unit along. But this can be really assisted by having several players working in conjunction. And one thing that I've found is very often other helicopter pilots are more than happy to jump in and help you. So do use SRS for this. If you want to set up a multi-unit site, just give out a call on SRS, and you never know, you might get some assistance, and this will very quickly cut down on the time to deploy one of these. One thing to note is if you are deploying a complex SAM site with another player, do make sure you coordinate. You don't want to be taking along 2 tracking radars and have no one bringing the launcher. Using map markers is an excellent way of assisting with this, and if nothing else, I would also suggest doing this even if you're on your own. When you drop the first crate, put down a map marker. If nothing else, that'll make it easier to find when you're coming back with the next crate. Now, quite similar to this system, but independent of it, is the troop transport system. This is available for all of the same airframes and lets you put mounted infantry, i.e. a dude in the back of a Toyota Hilux. Now, the big difference with this compared to the vehicle system is that instead of costing team points, this instead costs you credits at 3 credits, and those are paid when you load the troops onto your vehicle, which does mean this is a lot more risky. You can 100% get shot down with these troops on board, and then it's just a waste of credits. But otherwise, in order to load these, you need to be at a CTLD site. So again, friendly FARP or airfield. Go comms menu, F10, F5 CTLD, then F2 troop transport, and then F2 to load mounted infantry. There's only one type of mounted infantry, so you don't need to select it. You will get a report in the top left telling you that you have loaded these on, and again, these will add to your aircraft weight, and at the same time this will be announced to the rest of the team, which does make for some interesting call-outs when all of a sudden you stuff a guy in the back of your Focke-Wulf. Either way, you transport these to the desired location just as before, land just as before, and then you unload these mounted infantry by going F10 other, F5 CTLD, F2 to troop transport, and then F1 unload. In this case, you don't need to unpack, they are unloaded in their wonderful little trucks. You don't need to do anything further, they're just immediately active. Now, these are particularly useful for capturing sites. You can absolutely use vehicle crates to capture neutralized FARPs, airfields, and strategic locations. As soon as any friendly vehicle is within the inner circle, it will be captured, doesn't matter what it is. But this gives you a good option of quickly deploying just a unit in there to grab an airfield, for example. And since it only requires a single drop, you don't have to go back, making it very useful for this application. Also worth knowing that you can take troops and vehicle crates at the same time, so you can use this to double up. Again, this can be really useful, especially if there are, say, several objectives on the map that have been neutralized, say several capture points. You can go along, take one by, say, dropping a shilker, capture the second by dropping off troops, and then go back, really making the most of your time there. Also really like being able to drop, say, a shilker on the outskirts of a base to give me some personal protection, and then keeping the troops on hand in case we manage to neutralize the base. In that case, then I can land there and capture the site straight away without having to RTB. And I just wanted to finish up today with a few general tips to bear in mind. There is a huge depth to this, huge amount that you can go into, and I will probably be putting together a more advanced guide in the future for all sorts of sneaky tricks that you can do, more advanced loadouts. But just to note that with this you can also put down EWR systems using the exact same set of controls. That can really help give you some forward visibility, particularly if the enemy has been sniping your AWACS aircraft. Other thing to bear in mind is your units do have limited ammo. This is DCS, it does track ammo counts. You can resupply units if they are within range of a friendly ammo truck, which is accessible by selecting the EWR and Logistics class of crates. Any unit that is close enough to a logistics truck will start reloading. Do note that this will take a very long amount of time, particularly with SAM sites. It varies from unit to unit, but SAM sites can take upwards of 45 minutes to completely reload. But as long as the truck is near them, that process will be continuing. It is completely hands-off. But it is a good idea just to stick a reload vehicle and ammo truck near any sites that you're putting down. Really does help their longevity. Another tip that I will point out here just before we wrap things up is that it's also a good idea to put down some kind of point defense for your SAM sites. Your SAM sites are going to be big targets, and both sides have really quite capable harm systems. And players love taking seed strikes to take out these big SAM networks that you've put together. And the best thing you can do to prevent this is to have some kind of short-range defense there. Now, this can be point defense radar systems such as the Roland or the SA-15 Tor systems, which are capable of launching their missiles at incoming harms and mavericks. And it can also include your radar-guided AAA, such as your Tunguskas, are also capable of doing this. Put these down right next to your SAM sites in order to apply some mutual defense there, and make your sites a lot tougher to crack. So that's everything for today, trying to keep this video as short as I can while covering this rather complicated topic. I will be doing future videos on a variety of systems. I was going to include factories in this one, but I will be breaking that off as its own video in the interest of time. And I also will be doing how to control these vehicles using the combined arms systems as its own future video. Otherwise, if you do have any questions about this, please do let me know down below. I'll do my best to answer. And otherwise, I hope you'll remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.